Hey class, just wanted to take a few minutes to go over the week 3 written responses assignment so that we can go through those questions and make sure everyone understands what is expected. Okay, so it will be a file submission. I have attached what we're looking at here on the screen, this Word document. I've attached it to the instructions so that you can download that and use it as your template if you'd like. You don't have to, but it does have to be a file submission. So a Word document, Google Doc, Open Doc, PDF. The only file format I can't open is .pages, right? So make sure that you are prepared for that. Week 3, we covered chapter 4 and chapter 5. So just keep in mind that the questions that you're going to be answering, you're going to need to show that you have gone through the material in those 2 chapters. We're trying to make connections here. So I need your responses to relate to what was discussed in the chapters. All right. It'll be graded using the written response rubric, and it is due by Sunday night if possible. So for chapter 4, our first question is, think of a time when you were engaged in an argument or a debate with a family member, friend, teacher, employer, someone else you know and respect. So think of a time when you were engaged in an argument or a debate and that you supported your position with solid, credible evidence, right? Even though you knew that doing so might upset, anger, or even alienate the other person, right? So person you care about, you're in this argument, you're in this debate, you're having this discussion, you're on, we're assuming, opposite sides, right? And you are coming at it and you have really solid evidence to help support your point of view. But you know that providing that evidence and going all in, so to speak, is going to upset that person, maybe alienate them, right? They may even not really want to be around you very much afterwards. But you did it anyway because you believed in the issue, it was important, whatever the case may be. What was the outcome? That's what we're focused on here. What was the outcome of that situation? And I want you to evaluate this response that you're providing and discuss how you did or didn't use critical thinking skills when responding to the criticism of your position, which again was supported by solid evidence. So you're providing this solid evidence and the other person is criticizing you or coming back with, you know, maybe they weren't taking the high road in their response to your position and the evidence that you were providing. So you're trying to, you know, show them, you know, well-researched, well thought out, well documented, you know, acceptable, solid evidence, and they're just criticizing all of it. How did you or did you not use your own critical thinking skills to respond to all of that? So basically just taking those concepts that we've learned in chapter 4 and kind of seeing how they've played out in a situation like this. Okay. Question number 2. Given that humans are prone to cognitive errors, should we use computers rather than physicians for medical diagnoses? Support your answer. And keep in mind, the question isn't asking if we should eliminate doctors and healthcare workers entirely, but rather should we specifically rely on computers just for that medical diagnosis portion of healthcare, right? Question 3, what cognitive errors are you most likely to commit? Give a specific example of your using this error. So again, we cover specific cognitive errors in chapter 4. Those are what you're going to need to look at and decide which one, you know, you want to talk about, what you have probably, you know, been guilty of. Right? Question 4. Polls before elections can influence how people vote by swaying undecided voters to vote for the candidate who is in the lead. There are plenty of other ways that they can sway undecided voters, but in this particular case, we're looking at, you know, how those polls could sway an undecided voter by prompting them to vote for the candidate in the lead. Like, I don't know who I want to vote for, but this person's in the lead. They must be the better choice. So that's who I'm going to vote for, essentially, right? Analyze whether election polls should be forbidden prior to the election itself, which I guess would just then leave us with exit polls, right? So think about that. All right, then we move on to chapter 5. So our first question for chapter 5, this is going to take a little bit of time. So again, this is one of those where, like, if you end up having to turn this assignment in a little late, I totally get it, because this one's going to take a little legwork, not a lot, but a little bit. All right, so first, look for 2 examples of informal fallacies in the media. They can be fallacies of ambiguity, fallacies of relevance, or fallacies involving unwarranted assumptions, or a combination of any 2, right? So you're looking for 2 examples of informal fallacies, and they can fall under any of the categories that I just listed. And remember, each category has several different types of fallacies that go under that category. So just choose 2, right? Find 2 examples in the media. You can look at news coverage, magazine articles, advertisements of any type, political cartoons. Your search can even include, recent examples or older examples. If you want to do a little, deep dive on the internet and look for like older advertisements, older political cartoons, things like that. There's a fountain of information on those. Right, so once you have found your 2 examples of an informal fallacy, you're going to answer the following question for each example. So for example 1, you're going to tell me what your example is, like explain it, because I don't want you to have to worry about like trying to scan it, attach it, link it, whatever. Just describe it. Tell me what's going on. And then identify which informal fallacy is present in the example, and discuss what purpose the writer or creator is hoping to achieve, either deliberately or subconsciously, by using this fallacy. What's the point, right? And then you'll do the same exact thing for your second example. Describe it, name the fallacy that it's using, and what the writer / creator hoped to achieve, okay? All right. So again, that might take a little legwork. Honestly, though, if you just do a Google search for political cartoons, you're going to find a ton to choose from. But if political cartoons really like aren't your jam, then you'll still be able. You can look for advertisements, examples of informal fallacies. You could do that search and just find an example. But do your best to only look for the examples. Try to avoid reading any kind of analysis or commentary that is already attached to that example. So that's why it can be a little tricky. But if you can resist that urge and just look at for the examples, there's plenty out there. All right. All right. So question number 2 is all about fallacies of ambiguity. So A, which fallacy of ambiguity are you most likely to fall for? Give a specific example. And then B, which fallacy of ambiguity are you most likely to use? Give a specific example. And I'm sure we'd all love to say, oh, well, I wouldn't fall for any kind of fallacy of ambiguity, or I would never, present someone with, information that involved an informal fallacy. No, of course, we're not, but we're all human, and, we can all fall victim to them, and we can all be guilty of using them, even unintentionally. So just think about it and provide an example of each. Then we've got fallacies of relevance. Which fallacy of relevance are you most likely to fall for? Give an example. Which fallacy of relevance are you most likely to use? Give a specific example. And then number 4, fallacies of unwarranted assumption. Which fallacy involving an unwarranted assumption are you most likely to fall for? With an example. And which fallacy involving an unwarranted assumption are you most likely to use? With an example, right? Okay, so again, all of this is coming from the material in chapters 4 and 5, so be sure that you are going through those PowerPoints, watching me in the video, go through the chapters if you need to, reading the chapters, whatever works best for you. Just know that you are, required to make these connections between the chapters and the questions and your responses, okay? Reach out if you have any questions whatsoever, run into any problems whatsoever. Otherwise, just do your best to have it submitted by Sunday night's due date or shortly thereafter.